The summer heat had been unbearable for weeks, thick and sticky even after sunset. My little apartment on the second floor faced a narrow alley that separated my building from the identical one next door. Only 6 feet of darkness lay between my bedroom window and his. I never bothered with curtains. Who would climb up to the second story just to look? Besides, the only light opposite mine belonged to a quiet guy I barely knew, tall, dark-haired, always carrying groceries in paper bags. We had nodded at each other in the mailbox area maybe 3 times in 2 years. His name was Ethan, I think. That was all. Tonight, like every night lately, I came home exhausted from the late shift at the cafe. The clock glowed 12:47 a.m. I kicked off my shoes, peeled away the sweaty uniform, and let it drop to the floor. The room was lit only by the soft amber of a single bedside lamp. Cool air from the fan kissed my skin as I unhooked my bra and sighed in relief. I remember standing there for a long moment in nothing but thin cotton panties, stretching my arms overhead, rolling the day out of my shoulders. Freedom. That is all I was thinking about. Then I felt it something like a breath on the back of my neck, but colder. My eyes drifted to the window. At first I saw only my own reflection. Hair messy, skin glowing. Then the reflection shifted. Behind the faint ghost of myself, across the alley, a silhouette stood perfectly still in the dark frame of the opposite window. The light in his room must have been off, because all I could make out was the outline of broad shoulders and the faint glint where streetlight caught his eyes. Watching. My heart slammed against my ribs. I should have screamed. I should have grabbed a shirt, yanked the blinds, called the police. Instead, I froze, arms still half raised, every inch of me suddenly awake. The distance was too great to read his expression, but I swear I felt the weight of his stare sliding over my bare chest, down the curve of my waist, lingering where the fabric clung low on my hips. Seconds stretched like taffy. Then, slowly, so slowly that I wondered if I imagined it, he lifted one hand and pressed his palm flat against his own window glass, as if reaching across the void. I dropped my arms. My skin prickled with something that felt dangerously close to excitement. I took one step closer to my window, close enough that my breath fogged the pain. His head tilted, just a fraction. Another silent question. I could have turned away. Instead, I hooked my thumbs into the waistband of my panties and slid them down my thighs, letting them fall. Step out of them and stand completely naked under the golden lamp. The alley air between us seemed to thrum. His hand on the glass curled into a fist, knuckles whitening. I saw the rise and fall of his chest, quick and uneven. I do not know how long we stayed like that, me exposed, him hidden in shadow. Eventually I reached for the lamp switch. Darkness swallowed my room. But not before I caught the faintest movement. He had not stepped back. He was still there, waiting to see what I would do next. I crawled into bed with my pulse racing between my legs and the strangest smile on my lips. Sleep did not come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt those unseen eyes tracing me again, memorizing every curve I had just offered up like a gift. The next nights followed the same pattern, only worse or better, depending on how honest I was willing to be with myself. I started timing my arrival home to the minute. I left the lamp on its lowest setting, just enough light to gild my skin. I made a show of it without admitting that is what I was doing. I would let the straps of my bra slip off my shoulders one by one, turning my back to the window so he could watch the clasp come undone. I would bend over slowly to pick up dropped clothes, knowing exactly how the angle framed me. Some nights I stood under the shower in the bathroom with the door open, steam curling into the bedroom, water tracing paths down my stomach and thighs, while I pretended I did not know he could see everything if he angled himself just right. I never saw his face clearly. He was careful always in darkness, never turning on a light. But I began to recognize the small things, the way he leaned one shoulder against his window frame when he thought I was not looking directly. The way his hand sometimes rose to touch the glass again, fingers splayed as if trying to feel the heat of my body through 2 panes and 6 feet of night. One Thursday, I came home later than usual, almost 2 in the morning. The sky had been threatening rain all day, and the air felt electric. I was restless, keyed up from too much coffee and the memory of his invisible touch. I stripped faster than usual, almost angrily, and stood naked in the center of the room with my hands on my back hips, staring straight across the alley. Come out where I can see you, I thought. Stop hiding. Lightning flickered, illuminating everything for a split second. In that frozen heartbeat, I finally saw him, sharp jaw, messy hair falling over his forehead. Eyes locked on me with raw hunger. Then darkness rushed back in, but the image burned behind my eyelids. My breath left me in a shaky rush. I walked to the window until my nipples brushed the cool glass. Another flash of lightning. He had not moved. His shirt was gone now. I could see the cut of muscle across his chest, the shadowed line disappearing beneath his waistband. He lifted his hand again. But this time he wrote something on the fogged pane with one finger, slow, deliberate strokes. Even from here, I could read it backwards. Show me more. Heat flooded me so fast I swayed, my palms pressed flat against my window in answer. I let my head fall back, arching so my breast lifted. The eyes parting just enough to promise everything. Thunder growled overhead. I stayed like that until the storm broke and rain lashed both buildings, streaking the glass and turning the world into blurred silver. I did not sleep at all that night. I lay in the dark, touching myself slowly, imagining his hand instead of mine, wondering how much longer we could keep pretending 6 feet and 2 sheets of glass were enough to hold all this back. After the storm, something shifted. The game was no longer his alone. I had seized the rules and rewritten them in my own handwriting. The next evening, I came home early on purpose. 7:42 p.m. sun, still bleeding orange across the sky. I left every light in the apartment blazing. I wanted him to see exactly what he had been craving in the dark. I stood in front of the window and slowly unbuttoned my blouse, never breaking eye contact with the black rectangle across the alley. I knew he was already there. I could feel it the way you feel someone step into a room behind you. When the blouse slid off my shoulders, I let it hang from my fingertips for a moment before dropping it. Bra neck's black lace tonight, the one that barely contains me. I turned my back to him, looked over my shoulder, and unclasped it with deliberate slowness. The straps slipped down my arms like silk scarves. I did not cover myself. I pivoted, cupped my breasts in both hands, and lifted them in offering. My thumbs brushed over my nipples until they ached and stood hard. Across the gap, his silhouette sharpened. He had stepped closer to his glass. I smiled, small, wicked, unstoppable. Then I walked away, leaving him staring at empty air. 15 minutes later, I returned, wearing only a thin white camisole and the tiniest pair of cotton shorts I owned. No bra, no panties. The fabric clung to every damp curve. I dragged my desk chair right up to the window, sat facing him, and spread my knees wide. The shorts rode high enough that the soft seam pressed exactly where I needed it. I rocked once, twice, letting my head fall back. My hand slid up my thighs, under the hem, and I touched myself through the cloth until the cotton darkened with wetness. His window reflected the streetlight, just enough for me to catch the motion of his arm, moving in slow, controlled strokes. Knowing he was touching himself while he watched me almost undid me right there. I stopped just before the edge, stood up, and wrote on my fogging glass with one trembling finger. Your turn. Then I killed every light except the one directly behind me, turning myself into a backlit shadow play. I peeled the camisole over my head, let the shorts drop, and stood naked again. I pressed my whole body to the window, breasts flattening against the cool pane, hips rolling in slow circles. I wanted him to feel the vibration of my moan, even if he could not hear it. For 3 nights we danced like this, me performing, him responding with increasingly desperate gestures, shirt lifted to reveal a hard stomach, and disappearing beneath his waistband, once even the unmistakable outline of him stroking himself fully exposed until he disappeared from view for long, agonizing minutes. I started leaving my window cracked open just enough for sound to carry. I wanted him to hear the slick rhythm of my fingers, the broken little cries I could not hold back when I came thinking of him. On the 5th night, the sky cracked open again, another summer storm, fiercer than the first. Thunder shook the building. Rain hammered sideways. I came home, soaked from the dash up the stairs, hair plastered to my neck, white tank transparent and clinging to every curve. I did not bother with lights. Lightning was enough. I stripped right there at the window, water streaming off my skin, nipples so tight they hurt. I was shaking, not from cold. I pressed both palms to the glass and mouthed his name, though I was not sure he could read it. Ethan. Lightning flashed. He was shirtless, chest heaving, one hand braced high on his frame as if holding himself back. The next crack of thunder masked the sound of my window, sliding all the way up. Rain blew in cool and wild. I leaned out into the storm, hair whipping across my face, and whispered into the dark, loud enough to carry the 6 feet. Watch me. I stepped back, laid down on my bed in full view, knees wide, and touched myself exactly the way I had imagined his mouth would, slowly at first, then faster, hips lifting off the mattress. Every flash of lightning lit me up for him, back arched, fingers buried deep, lips parted on silent screams. I came so hard my vision whited out, thighs trembling, toes curled against the sheets. When the shaking stopped, I looked up. His window was empty. Disappointment stabbed sharp and sudden. I sat up, hair sticking to my wet shoulders, heart still hammering. Then I heard it, 3 soft taps on the glass. Tap. Tap. He was outside my window, on the fucking fire escape I never used. Rain poured off his hair, off the hard lines of his shoulders. His white t-shirt was plastered to him like a second skin, outlining every muscle. His eyes were black in the stormlight, fixed on me with something beyond hunger, something almost feral. I should have been afraid. Instead, I walked to the window on shaky legs and pushed it all the way open. Rain lashed in, soaking the floor. He did not ask permission. One hand gripped the sill, the other reached for me. His fingers closed around my wrist. Firm, warm, real. The first real touch, after weeks of only looks and air and glass. Thunder crashed directly overhead. The world went white. I pulled. He climbed through. The moment his feet hit my floor, the room shrank to the size of our breathing. Rain hammered the open window behind him, but neither of us moved to close it. Water streamed off his hair, down the sharp line of his jaw, over the soaked cotton clinging to his chest. His hand was still locked around my wrist. Thumb pressed to my pulse like he was checking. I was real. I was naked, trembling and so wet it had nothing to do with the storm. Ethan's eyes dragged down my body, slow, deliberate, greedy. When they came back to my face, whatever thin thread had been holding him snapped. He yanked me against him in one motion. Cold, wet shirt met hot skin. The shock made me gasp into his mouth as he kissed me like he would have been starving for years. Teeth, tongue, no patience. My back slammed against the wall beside the window. His hands were everywhere, cupping my breast, sliding down to grip my hips, lifting me so my legs wrapped around his waist without thinking. Every night, he growled against my throat, voice rough from disuse. Every fucking night I watched you and told myself I would not cross that alley. His teeth scraped my collarbone. You made that impossible. I laughed, breathless and wild, and bit his earlobe hard enough to make him hiss. Good. He carried me to the bed like I weighed nothing. We fell in a tangle of limbs and soaked clothes. I clawed at his shirt. He ripped it over his head and threw it somewhere. The sight of him bare-chested in the lightning flashes stole whatever air I had left. Lean muscle, rain, slick skin, the clear outline of how hard he was through his jeans. I reached for his belt. He caught my wrists, pinned them above my head with one hand, and looked down at me, spread out beneath him. Slow, he said, the word shaking. I have waited too long to rush this. He took his time, then agonizing, perfect time. His mouth started at my throat and moved lower, tasting rain and skin. He licked droplets from the hollow between my breasts, circled one nipple until I arched off the mattress, then sucked it hard enough to pull a broken moan from me. When he moved to the other, his free hand slid between my thighs, parting me, finding me slick and ready. One finger, then two, curled inside me while his thumb circled that spot that made my vision spark. I tried to rock against his hand. He held me still, forcing me to take exactly what he gave. Please, I finally whimpered, wrists straining against his grip. He let go, only to shove his jeans down. I got one glimpse, thick, hard, the head already wet before he was back over me, nudging my knees wider. The storm roared outside. Inside, there was only the sound of our breathing and the slick drag of him sliding through my folds, teasing, coating himself. Look at me, he ordered. I did. His eyes locked on mine as he pushed in slow, relentless, stretching me open, inch by inch. The feeling was overwhelming, too much and exactly enough. When he was fully seated, he stilled, forehead pressed to mine, both of us shaking. Then he moved. There was no more slow after that. He pulled back and thrust deep, again, setting a rhythm that had the headboard knocking the wall. My nails raked down his back. His hand hooked under my knee and opened me wider so he could go deeper. Every stroke sent sparks up my spine. I felt the edge rushing toward me and tried to warn him, but all that came out was his name, over and over. He slipped a hand between us, thumb finding my clit, and I shattered back, bowing, thighs clamping around his hips, inner walls pulsing so hard he groaned like I was pulling his soul out. He followed seconds later, burying himself to the hilt and coming with a guttural sound against my neck, hips jerking through every wave. We stayed locked together, panting, while the storm quieted to a steady rain. He did not pull out. Instead, he rolled us. So I was on top, still joined, his hands stroking lazily down my spine. I started. Not nearly enough, he finished, voice rough again. His hips rolled upward, proving he was already hardening inside me. My breath caught. Round two was slower, filthier. I rode him with the window still open, rain misting our heated skin. He sat up so I could wrap my arms around his shoulders. And we moved together like we would done this 1,000 times. He sucked bruises into my breasts, whispered every depraved thing he would imagine doing while he watched me. When I came again, it was with his fingers in my mouth and his name muffled against his palm. Round three happened against the window itself. He pressed me to the glass, cool on my breasts, his chest hot against my back. The city was asleep below. Only the rain saw him slide into me from behind, one hand over my mouth to keep my cries from carrying too far, the other working between my legs until I sagged, boneless, against the pain. We finally collapsed on the floor, too spent to make it back to the bed. He pulled me into his arms, both of us sticky with sweat and rain and each other. Dawn was still hours away, but the storm had passed, leaving only the soft patter on the sill. "This can't be just once," he murmured against my temple. I turned my face into his neck and smiled. "Then move your bed closer to your window, neighbor. Or better yet, leave the fire escape unlocked." His low laugh vibrated through me. Outside, the first bird called. Inside, his hand was already sliding down my hip again, slow and possessive. The secret had exploded, and neither of us had any intention of cleaning up the mess.